The promotion isn't for people like you. That's what my manager Derek said when I asked about the senior analyst position. The conference room smelled like stale coffee and disappointment. I could hear keyboards clicking in the cubicles outside, the same sound I'd been listening to for 3 years. Derek leaned back in his chair, arms crossed like he was guarding a treasure I'd never deserve. My presentation folder sat unopened on the table between us. I straightened my blazer, cleared my throat, and chose silence.
No argument, no tears.
I stood up and walked back to my desk. 3 weeks later, the quarterly reports went live and Derek's laughter died in his throat. Here's what happened next. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead that Tuesday morning, the kind that made everything look slightly sick. Derek had scheduled our meeting for 4:30 p.m., right when most people were packing up to leave. The timing wasn't accidental. He wanted privacy for what he thought would be an easy rejection. I'd prepared for weeks. Revenue projections, cost analysis, client retention rates. Every metric that mattered, organized in color-coded tabs. The promotion to senior financial analyst had been posted for 2 months. I'd been doing half the work already, covering for Derek's mistakes while he took credit in board meetings. Growing up, my grandmother used to say, "Let your work speak louder than your words." She'd immigrated from El Salvador with nothing but a fierce belief that excellence couldn't be ignored forever. I thought about her as I walked into that conference room, carrying 3 years of perfect performance reviews and the hope that merit still mattered. Derek was scrolling through his phone when I sat down. He didn't look up immediately, a power move I'd seen him use with junior staff. When he finally acknowledged me, his smile was the kind salespeople use on customers they've already written off. "So, Maria," he said, pronouncing my name like it was foreign to his tongue. "You want to discuss your career aspirations?" I slid the presentation across the table. "I'd like to be considered for the senior analyst position. My performance metrics show." He held up a hand without opening the folder. "Let me stop you right there." The room went quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning. Derek leaned forward, elbows on the table, like he was about to share a secret. "Maria, you're a good worker. Reliable. But leadership? That's different. That requires presence. Authority." He gestured vaguely at my face, my clothes, my existence. "The promotion isn't for people like you.
People like me."
The words hung in the air like smoke. I knew what he meant. Not the blonde MBA from Northwestern who'd been hired 6 months ago. Not the guy from his fraternity who called him D-Dog and played golf on weekends. People like me. Scholarship kids who worked nights to pay for community college. People with accents their parents never lost. People who brought homemade lunch instead of ordering sushi. "I have the highest client satisfaction scores in the department," I said quietly. Derek waved his hand like he was swatting away a fly. "Clients like you because you're non-threatening. But respect? That's earned differently." I felt my chest tighten, the familiar burn of swallowing words that wanted to explode. 3 years of staying late, fixing his spreadsheet errors, watching him stumble through presentations I'd written. 3 years of smiling through comments about my exotic name and questions about where I was really from. What would I need to do? I asked, to earn that respect.
He laughed then.
Not a cruel laugh, which somehow made it worse. Just casual dismissal, like I'd asked if I could fly, by flapping my arms. Honestly, find a company that's a better fit. You're great at taking direction, following processes. But this role requires vision, strategy, leadership presence. He tapped his temple. It's not something you can learn from a manual. The presentation folder sat untouched between us, 3 weeks of work reduced to irrelevance. I could feel my grandmother's voice in my head, telling me to stay calm, to be smart, to let my work speak. But Derek had just told me my work didn't have a voice. I nodded once, picked up my folder, and stood. "Thank you for your time." As I reached the door, he called out, "Hey, don't take it personally. It's just business." Business. Like my 3 years of dedication were a transaction he could dismiss with a shrug. Back at my desk, I sat in the growing darkness of the empty office. The cleaning crew had started their rounds, vacuum cleaners humming in distant cubicles. I opened my laptop and stared at the screen, cursor blinking in an empty document. That night, I stayed until 2 a.m., not working on Derek's projects, but on something else. Something I'd been tracking quietly for months, numbers that told a different story than the one Derek presented in his monthly reports. See, Derek had a habit of taking credit for wins and deflecting blame for losses. But numbers don't lie, and I had access to all of them. Client acquisition costs, retention rates, revenue per account, project completion times. 3 years of data showing a clear pattern. The accounts I managed consistently outperformed his. The projects I led came in under budget and ahead of schedule. The clients who worked directly with me renewed at higher rates. I built a comprehensive analysis, cross-referencing every metric with Derek's self-reported contributions. The picture that emerged was damning. Not just incompetence, but systematic fraud. Inflated performance reviews, stolen credit for subordinates' work, and expense reports that didn't match reality.
But I didn't send it that night.
I waited. 3 weeks later, our quarterly business review arrived. The one Derek had volunteered to present to the executive team, confident in his ability to spin another tale of his indispensable leadership. I'd been invited to attend as a data support resource, which meant I'd sit in the back and pull up numbers if anyone asked detailed questions. Derek's insurance policy, just in case his usual charm offensive fell flat. The conference room was full of suits and serious faces. Our CEO, Janet Walsh, sat at the head of the table, known for her sharp questions and sharper memory for details. Derek strutted to the front, laser pointer in hand, ready for his moment of glory. Q3 was another record quarter for our division, he began, clicking to his first slide. Client satisfaction up 15%, revenue growth at 12%, and cost management beating targets by 8%. Murmurs of approval around the table. Derek's smile widened. These results reflect strategic initiatives I've implemented over the past year, focusing on relationship management and operational efficiency. I watched from my corner chair as he clicked through slides filled with my work, my analysis, my client relationships. Every chart and graph represented late nights and early mornings, problems I'd solved while he was at lunch meetings that ran until 3 p.m. Then Janet raised her hand. Derek, these numbers are impressive. Can you break down the client retention rates by account manager? Derek's smile flickered for just a moment. Sure, absolutely. Maria, can you pull up those details? I stood slowly, laptop in hand, and connected to the projector. But instead of Derek's prepared slides, I loaded my own presentation. The one I'd been building for 3 weeks. Actually, I said, I have something more comprehensive. Derek's face went pale. Maria, let's stick to the agenda. The retention data is fascinating. I continued, ignoring him. When we break it down by individual contribution rather than departmental averages, we see some interesting patterns. The first chart filled the screen. Client retention rates by account manager, color-coded and crystal clear. My accounts, 94% retention. Derek's accounts, 67% retention. Department average that Derek claimed credit for, 85%. Janet leaned forward. These numbers are quite different from what we just saw. Yes, I said, advancing to the next slide. When we look at revenue per client, we see similar patterns. Accounts managed directly by Derek show 23% lower lifetime value compared to accounts I've managed personally. Derek stood up abruptly. This is inappropriate. Maria isn't authorized to. Sit down, Derek. Janet's voice cut through his protest like a blade. I want to see the rest of this data. The room went silent. Derek dropped into his chair, face red with anger and something that looked like fear. I clicked through slide after slide. Project timelines showing my initiatives completed 30% faster. Cost analysis revealing Derek's expense reports averaged 40% higher than department norms. Client feedback scores that told the story Derek had been trying to bury. 3 weeks ago, I said, my voice steady and clear, I requested consideration for the senior analyst position. I was told that leadership requires presence and authority and that the role wasn't for people like me. You could have heard a pin drop. Several executives exchanged glances. These numbers suggest that people like me, people who actually do the work, manage the clients, and drive the results, might be exactly what leadership looks like. Janet's pen tapped against her notepad. Derek, would you like to respond to this data? Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. These numbers are taken out of context. Maria doesn't understand the bigger picture. The bigger picture, I interrupted gently, is on slide 15. The final chart showed 3 years of departmental performance correlated with Derek's reported contributions versus actual measurable outcomes. The line graphs diverged dramatically, showing his claimed impact moving up while real metrics declined during the same periods. This analysis, I concluded, suggests that our department's success comes from individual contributors who aren't being recognized or rewarded appropriately. People who are told they don't have leadership presence while they're actually carrying the team. I closed the laptop and returned to my seat. The silence stretched for what felt like hours, but was probably 30 seconds. Janet spoke first. Derek, I think you should step outside while we discuss this. He stood on shaky legs, shooting me a look of pure hatred as he left the room. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Maria, Janet said, how long would it take you to transition into Derek's role while we conduct a formal review of these findings? I smiled for the first time in 3 weeks. I've been ready since the day I started here. The next Monday, Derek's office was being cleared out by security. His desk drawers were empty, his motivational posters removed from the walls. The company had moved fast once they started digging into the discrepancies I'd highlighted. Expense fraud, credit theft, falsified performance metrics. The review had uncovered 3 years of systematic deception. I sat in my new office, Derek's old office, reviewing quarterly projections on my own laptop. Through the glass window, I could see my old cubicle, now occupied by a recent graduate who reminded me of myself 3 years ago. Eager, hardworking, probably being told to pay her dues and wait her turn. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. 3 months later, still trying to blame me for his downfall. Hope you're happy. You destroyed my career over hurt feelings. I deleted it without responding. I'd learned that people who steal credit will always blame others when the truth catches up to them. The truth was simple. I hadn't destroyed Derek's career. I'd just let the numbers speak louder than his lies. Janet knocked on my office door frame. How are you settling in? Great, I said, minimizing my spreadsheet. The team is responding well to the new structure. She nodded approvingly. Your first quarterly review with the board is next month. I have a feeling you'll present a very different picture than your predecessor. After she left, I opened the email draft I'd been working on. A message to the recent graduate in my old cubicle, inviting her to lunch and mentoring program I was starting. The subject line read, "Your work has a voice. Let's make sure it's heard." Derek had laughed at my promotion request because he thought my work would stay silent forever. He was wrong. Sometimes the loudest revenge isn't confrontation or anger. It's competence speaking for itself. It's showing up with receipts when everyone expects you to disappear. It's proving that people like you are exactly the people leadership needs. They thought I'd stay quiet, keep my head down, accept their version of my worth. But numbers don't lie, and neither do results. If you've ever been told you're not leadership material while you're doing all the leading, know this. Document everything. Track your wins. Build your case. Because when the moment comes to speak up, you want your work to roar. Tell me, have you ever had to let your results do the talking when your voice wasn't being heard?